Okay, Module 2, and this is not 7, this would be Lesson 8. So in Lesson 7, we kind of were introduced to sequence of translations. So we translated a figure along a vector, and then we translated it along another vector. Okay. We could undo that by translating it reverse of the first vector. So if we moved it along the vector, to undo that, we would just do the opposite, which was an inverse transformation. Now, not all transformations can be undone, like the translation. So we're going to look at reflections. So we have this diagram here. We have line L, and there are things that have been reflected. Okay. What would undo these reflections? What is the inverse of a reflection? What's the opposite of a reflection? How could we undo a reflection? So, to undo a reflection, we can repeat that reflection. Okay, so we're going to look at this picture. I'm going to show you kind of what I'm talking about here. Use this side. Okay, I have P and P prime. I have my line of reflection. Q is on that line, so it does not move. I have A, and I have A prime. So if I reflect this, let me do this. Alright, if I reflect this, okay, I line it up again. P became P prime, and A became A prime. Now if I wanted to go back, I would just undo that by reflecting this again. So then now A prime was on A, and P prime was back on P. Okay, so to do the inverse or undo a reflection, we just reflect it again over the line of reflection. So we're looking here, if we reflect this, P goes to P prime and A goes to A prime. The one thing that does not move, okay, would be Q. Q is on the line of reflection, so it stays there. That's why it doesn't technically move, but it does move. And the line of reflection just becomes L prime. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump in to your exercises, and we're going to use this page right here, page 40, okay, to help us. This shows a reflection across line L, okay, and I want to talk to you about this real quick. Whenever you see reflection of a point, like here are points, this is E, F, G, H. So reflection of E just means E prime. Reflection of F, F prime. Reflection of G, G prime. Reflection of H, H prime. This was figure A, so this would be figure A prime. That's all that means. So this is a translation. Okay? So this would be the same thing. So we already named these one way. We would do the same thing here, except for this is a translation. And sometimes it's easier to do reflection of G and translation of G, so you kind of know where they went, okay, which was first, or depending on your order, okay, you could do H prime and then H prime prime, but that's not what happened here. So you can use reflection of, or translation of, or prime and double prime. Either way is fine. So now we're going to look at number 1. Number 1 says a figure A was translated along vector BA, so here's the first vector, resulting in this translation. Describe a sequence of translations that would map this back onto the original figure A. So, if we went from B to A, we're just going to do the opposite like we did in lesson 7. So, to put it back, so you would just say translate figure A along vector BA. And here's the deal, it says sequence. So that means more than one. Sequence means more than one. So we're going to move it. And then we're going to translate the image of figure A along vector AB. So what this is saying is that you're going to move figure A onto the translation of figure A, and then you're going to move it back. You have to do more than one thing when it asks for a sequence. Okay? So you translate it along the vector one way, and then you translate it along the vector another way. Okay? Figure A was reflected across line L, resulting in the reflection of figure A. Describe a sequence of reflections, so now we're talking about a sequence, and we're talking about reflections, that would map figure A back to its original position. So we're going to go from here to here, and then back again. Okay? So, to go from here to here, we would reflect over line L, and then we would take figure A prime and reflect back over line L. So here, you would say reflect figure A over line L. Semicolon, then reflect the image. The image is the one you draw, or the second one. The image of figure A across line L again. Okay, and 3 says, can a translation along vector AB of figure A undo a transformation of a translation along DC of figure A? Why or why not? So this is saying, can you translate it along vector BA and then undo with vector DC? Okay, so let's look at our diagram. So if we take this figure and we translate along vector AB, we get this. Then it wants to know if we take this and it translate along vector DC, would it put it back to figure A? It would not put it back to figure A. So here, vector DC would not undo vector BA, period. To undo a translation would have to move the figure back along the original vector. Okay. Now we're going to look at a couple of different examples to determine if the order in which we sequence rigid motions really matters. Okay, so think about a reflection followed by a translation. Would the figure be the same final location if the translation was done first, followed by a reflection? Okay, so here we are right here with this. I can move that right there. Can't see that. So we have a reflection and then a translation. So ellipse E is reflected here. Here's our original, and then it went to the yellow one. Then it is translated along vector BA, and we get this. Okay, so this is a reflection, then a translation. If I did this translation first and then a reflection, would it end up right there? Would we get them in the same location? Okay, so here, this is a reflection across line L. We get our yellow ellipse, and then we translate along vector AB, and we get the blue ellipse. Let's look at this the other way. If we first translate along vector AB, okay, we're starting with ellipse E, we go here. Okay, and then if we reflect the blue one over line L, we get this ellipse here, the yellow one. So when we look at these, how we order them, or the order in which we do a rigid motion, does matter. Here's a reflection, then a translation. This is the same thing except for the translation happened first and then a reflection. The end results here, this yellow one and this blue one, are not in the same location. So when we sequence them or do more than one rigid motion, the order in which we do them matters. Okay? So we need to be careful to pay close attention to how we do transformations. Now I'd like you to pause the video and watch the video, pause this video, and below here is a link for another video that I would like you to watch. Watch that video, and then I want you to come back to this video, okay? Now we're going to finish through exercises 4 through 7 together, and we are going to do this together, okay? Alright, so we have this diagram here. We have line L. This is figure S. It says let S be the black figure, so this would be figure S. And we have a vector down here, vector AB. Okay, so it says, let there be a translation along vector AB and a reflection across line L. So we're going to do the translation first and then a reflection. Okay, so I'm going to take this. So because you're doing two things, a translation and then a reflection, you're going to draw two figures. So I'm going to trace figure S. Again, I'm going to do the inside. It's very much easier for me to do the inside. Okay, and then I'm going to trace my vector. Okay, now with the vectors, all you're doing is moving the tail of the vector you drew to the tip of the original vector. So it's going to move like this. Okay, so what you would do is you would take it, you're going to put it underneath, line it up, and then you're going to trace I want to use a different color. Trace the figure. So here is S. Nope, we don't want to label it yet. So now we've moved it. So then we're going to take that figure, okay, that we just moved, and we're going to reflect it over line L. So again, draw our figure. I guess I could have left it on the page. I didn't have to erase it. I just am changing what I'm using. So now I'm going to, you got to draw the whole line of reflection because you have to line up the line of reflection. So you're going to draw from the top of the line of reflection to the bottom of the line of reflection. And all you're doing when you do this is literally taking your paper, flipping it over, and lining up the line of reflection. So this is where the first one would go. The end of number 4 would go here.